Daniel Wright stood at the observation window of the horizon's edge, watching the massive station grow larger as they approached. The Galactic Commonwealth's Central Assembly looked like a small moon, covered in lights that blinked in patterns he had memorized over the past 3 years. Today was the day. After 30 years of preparation, humanity would finally take its place among the stars. He adjusted his formal uniform and checked his reflection in the polished metal panel. At 53 years old, he had spent half his life preparing for this moment. His gray hair was neatly combed, his face showing the lines of countless negotiations and sleepless nights. Behind him, his team worked quietly, reviewing their presentation for the 100th time. Captain Lisa Hayes walked up beside him. She was younger, in her early 40s, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Nervous?" she asked quietly. Daniel smiled. "Terrified. But we've earned this. Humanity has proven itself." 10. He wasn't wrong. In the 30 years since first contact, humanity had done everything right. They had shared their technology freely. They had opened trade routes and never cheated anyone. They had sent diplomats, not warships. Earth's governments had united for the first time in history, presenting a peaceful, organized face to the galaxy. Dr. Henry Cole joined them at the window. The old scientist had been studying alien cultures since the first ships arrived at Earth. His white hair stuck out in all directions, as usual. "The council members are already gathering," he said. "I've been monitoring their communications. They seem cold, distant. They're always like that." Daniel replied. "Don't read too much into it." Young Amy Parker sat at her communications station, her fingers dancing over the controls. At 25, she was the youngest member of the delegation. "Ambassador Wright, we're being hailed. They're ready for us." Daniel took a deep breath. "Then let's make history." The council chamber was enormous. Hundreds of seats rose in circular tiers, each occupied by a representative from one of the Commonwealth's member species. Daniel recognized most of them from his studies. The tall, insect-like Calthex, the floating, jellyfish-like Orfari, the crystalline Xenothar, who communicated through light patterns. At the center sat the most important figure in the galaxy, Prime Minister Zeth Kora of the Velkari, the eldest species in known space. The Velkari looked almost human, but their skin had a faint blue tint and their eyes were pure black. Zeth Kora was ancient even by Velkari standards, over 400 years old. Daniel walked to the center platform, his team behind him. The chamber fell silent. "Honored members of the Galactic Commonwealth," Daniel began, his voice steady and clear. "I stand before you, representing humanity. For 3 decades, we have worked to prove ourselves worthy of joining your great civilization. We have opened our worlds to trade. We have shared our knowledge. We have maintained peace in every interaction. Today, we formally request membership in the Commonwealth." He activated the holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, showing its cities, its people, its achievements. Then came images of human colonies on Mars, Europa, and the 12 worlds beyond. Ships moved through space, carrying goods and people. Schools taught human children about alien cultures. Hospitals used Commonwealth medical technology to cure diseases. "We bring much to offer," Daniel continued. "Our industrial capacity is strong. Our people are eager to learn and contribute. We have resources, technology, and most importantly, a genuine desire for peaceful cooperation." The presentation lasted an hour. Daniel spoke with passion about humanity's transformation from a divided world to a unified civilization. He showed graphs of peaceful trade agreements, cultural exchanges, scientific collaborations. Every point had been carefully prepared to address any possible concern. When he finished, silence filled the chamber. Daniel waited, his heart pounding. Finally, Zeth Kora stood. The ancient Velkari's face was unreadable. We have reviewed your petition thoroughly, Zethkora said. The translator turned his words into perfect English. We have studied your species for 30 years. We have watched your development, analyzed your history, observed your behavior. Daniel felt hope rising in his chest. And we have reached a decision, Zethkora continued. Humanity's petition for Commonwealth membership is denied. The words hit Daniel like a physical blow. Around him, his team gasped. Lisa Hayes stepped forward, her face shocked. Denied? But we've met every requirement. Zethkora's black eyes swept across the human delegation. Requirements are not enough. Your species is too young, too volatile, too unpredictable. Your history shows endless wars, conflicts, and aggression. You achieved space travel barely 2 centuries ago. You unified your planet only when forced to, by our arrival. That's not fair, Dr. Cole protested. Every species has a violent past. The Velkari themselves fought wars for thousands of years before finding peace. We evolved beyond our violence over millennia. Zethkora replied coldly. You attempt to rush past it in mere decades. It is not genuine. It is a mask you wear to gain our approval. Another council member stood, a towering reptilian called a Drask. Your technological advancement is also concerning. You progress too quickly, adapting our technology at alarming rates. This suggests either theft of intellectual property or dangerous instability. Daniel's mind raced, trying to find arguments. But Zethkora raised a hand for silence. The decision is final. Furthermore, we believe humanity represents a potential threat to galactic stability. Effective immediately, human trade will be restricted to essential goods only. All human embassies in Commonwealth space will be closed. Human vessels are prohibited from entering Commonwealth core worlds. Humanity will be confined to its own territory until such time as you demonstrate genuine maturity. This may take centuries. This is exile, Lisa Hayes said, her voice shaking with anger. You're cutting us off from the galaxy. We are protecting the galaxy, Zethkora corrected. This decision will be broadcast throughout known space as a cautionary example. Other young species must understand that Commonwealth membership is earned through centuries of proven stability, not decades of performed cooperation. Amy Parker's hands trembled on her recording device. She was capturing everything, tears streaming down her face. Daniel wanted to scream, to argue, to fight. But he was a diplomat. He straightened his shoulders and looked directly at Zethkora. The Commonwealth will regret this decision. Is that a threat? The Drask representative growled. No, Daniel said quietly. It's a prediction. You're making a mistake. But we will prove our worth. With or without your approval. The journey back to Earth was silent. The crew of Horizon's Edge moved through their duties mechanically, their faces showing the shock and pain of rejection. Daniel sat alone in his quarters, staring at the wall. When they finally reached Earth, Daniel had to face the United Earth government. The council chambers were packed with officials, journalists, and citizens watching via broadcast. Everyone knew humanity had been rejected, but they didn't know the details yet. Daniel stood before them and delivered his report. He explained the rejection, the restrictions, the exile. He watched hope die in faces across the room. They called us too violent, too young, too unstable, he said. They called our progress dangerous. They've confined us to our own small corner of space and made us an example to warn others. The room erupted in angry voices. Some called for military action. Others demanded they petition again, apologizing and begging. A few suggested abandoning space travel entirely, retreating to Earth in shame. Daniel raised his hand, and slowly, the room quieted. They've rejected us, he said, his voice growing stronger. They've exiled us from their galaxy, their councils, their civilization. They think we'll wither away in isolation, that we'll prove them right about our instability. He paused, and something fierce flickered in his eyes. But they're wrong. If the Commonwealth won't let us join their galaxy, then we'll build our own. We'll find others they've rejected, others they've overlooked, others they've dismissed. And we'll show them what humanity really is. Not by begging for acceptance, but by earning respect. The room was silent now, everyone staring at him. Operation Shadowfall begins today, Daniel declared. We're going into the darkness they've confined us to, and we're going to light it up. 5 years had passed since the rejection, and Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the merchant vessel Trading Hope, watching a strange world grow larger in the viewport. The planet's surface was covered in geometric patterns, hive structures that stretched for hundreds of miles. This was Calrix Prime, home to a species the Galactic Commonwealth had banned from membership 20 years ago. Jake was 35. With dark hair and the kind of weathered face that came from spending years in space. He wore a simple civilian outfit, nothing that suggested he was actually Commander Morrison of Earth's Cultural Exchange Initiative. That was the official name anyway. In reality, he ran humanity's intelligence and diplomatic operations throughout the restricted zones of the galaxy. Nervous? Asked Nina Cross, standing beside him. She was in her late 20s, with red hair tied back in a practical bun. Nina had a gift for languages, and an even greater gift for reading people, alien or human. Always am before first contact, Jake admitted. The Calrix have every reason to distrust us. We're associated with the Commonwealth. In their eyes. But we're not Commonwealth, Nina said firmly. That's exactly why we're here. Dr. Peter Grant joined them, reviewing data on his tablet. The xenopsychologist was quiet and thoughtful, always analyzing behavior patterns. The Calrix were rejected for unethical business practices, but when you read the actual reports, their crime was simply being too good at trade. They undercut Commonwealth merchants and got banned for it. The ship landed in the designated visitor zone. Jake led his small team down the ramp into the thick, humid atmosphere of Calrix Prime. Within moments, they were surrounded by Calrix workers, insectoid creatures about 4 feet tall, with 6 limbs and large compound eyes. The workers moved with incredible coordination, like parts of a single organism. A larger Calrix approached, standing nearly 6 feet tall with decorative patterns on its carapace. The translator device clicked as it spoke. I am Coordinator Vix Thrall. You are the humans. We are, Jake said, bowing slightly in the Calrix gesture of respect that Peter had taught him. The Commonwealth's pets, Vix Thrall said, but there was curiosity in its voice, not anger. Why would humans visit the forbidden zones? Nina stepped forward. Because we're forbidden too. The Commonwealth rejected us 5 years ago, called us too dangerous, too unstable. We know what it feels like to be cast out. Vix Thrall's antennae quivered, a sign of surprise. The Commonwealth rejected you? But your species was celebrated. We saw the broadcasts of your embassies, your trade agreements, all performances, according to them, Jake said. When we actually petitioned for membership, they exiled us, restricted our trade, closed our embassies, confined us to our own territory. The Calrix coordinator was silent for a long moment. Then it made a clicking sound that the translator rendered as laughter. Come. We will talk. This is very interesting. Over the next week, Jake and his team met with Calrix leaders in their underground council chambers. They shared the story of humanity's rejection, holding nothing back. Nina explained how Earth had unified, how humanity had worked so hard for acceptance, only to be humiliated publicly. In return, the Calrix shared their own story. They had been master traders, creating efficient networks across dozens of systems. But when Commonwealth merchants couldn't compete, the Velkari accused them of cheating. No proof was ever provided. The Calrix were simply banned, and their trade networks dismantled. We were convenient scapegoats, Vix Thrall explained. The Commonwealth needs enemies to stay united. Outsiders, who can be blamed for problems. Jake leaned forward. What if I told you we've found 17 other species with similar stories? All rejected, all blamed for things they didn't do, all pushed to the edges of the galaxy. I would say you are building something, Vix Thrall replied. What do you want from us? Nina pulled up a holographic display. Partnership. Not trade agreements with restrictions. Not conditional friendship. Real partnership. We share technology, resources, and most importantly, respect. No species is superior. No species gets to decide who belongs. The Commonwealth would see this as rebellion, Vix Thrall warned. The Commonwealth isn't looking, Jake said with a slight smile. They think we're all too primitive to matter. They're too busy congratulating themselves to notice what happens in the shadows. The Calrix joined humanity's growing network. Over the next year, Jake's team made contact with species throughout the Forbidden Zones. The Sorai, peaceful telepaths who had been called invasive. The Vren, former warriors who had chosen peace but were forever mistrusted. The Makani Collective, artificial intelligences that the Commonwealth refused to recognize as alive. Each species had been rejected for different reasons. But the pattern was always the same. They didn't fit the Commonwealth's narrow definition of acceptable. They were too different, too independent, too successful at things that threatened Commonwealth control. Nina became the primary negotiator, traveling from world to world. She had a way of making aliens feel heard. Something the Commonwealth had never bothered with. She listened to their grievances, their fears, their hopes, and she offered something simple but revolutionary: equality. The Commonwealth works on hierarchy, she explained to the Sorai elders. Someone is always on top. Someone is always on the bottom. We're proposing something different, a council where every voice matters the same, regardless of how old your species is or how many worlds you control. The Sorai, who communicated partially through telepathy, were skeptical. Hierarchies are natural. Even among your own humans, there are leaders and followers. Leaders, yes, Nina agreed. But leadership should be earned through contribution, not assumed through age or power. And leaders should serve their people, not rule them. It took 2 years of careful diplomacy, but finally, Jake stood in a secret meeting facility on Dusk Station, a neutral trading post in an unclaimed system. Representatives from 23 species filled the chamber. Some looked like insects, others like plants, some like machines, and a few like nothing Jake could describe. He stood at the center podium, feeling the weight of the moment. We've all been rejected, he began. The Commonwealth looked at each of us and decided we weren't good enough. Too aggressive, too peaceful, too efficient, too strange, always too something. Heads nodded throughout the chamber, or their equivalent. Agreement rippled through the crowd. But what if rejection was their mistake, not our failure? Jake continued. What if the Commonwealth is so afraid of change, so locked into their ancient ways, that they can't see value in anything different? He activated the display, showing star maps. Together, we control significant territory. Together, we have diverse technologies and resources. Together, we represent billions of beings who deserve respect. Nina stepped up beside him. We propose the Shadow Assembly, a council of equals, where decisions are made by consensus, not decree, where species help each other without demanding submission, where being different is valued, not punished. Dr. Peter Grant added his voice. Humanity will provide the organizational framework and communication networks. But this isn't a human organization. It belongs to all of us equally. Lakes's Pervatitor side, Lakes's problem side, Grant win one side, and create 9. The debate lasted for hours. Some species worried about Commonwealth retaliation. Others questioned if unity was possible among such different beings. The Vren warriors wondered if a peaceful council could defend itself. Finally, Vix Thrall stood. The Calrics were traitors before the Commonwealth destroyed our networks. We rebuilt in secret, but alone, we are weak. Together, we can be strong. I vote yes. One by one, other species added their agreement. The Sauri, the Vren, the Makani, species Jake had never heard of until this mission. When the final vote came, all 23 species agreed. The Shadow Assembly was born. The charter was simple. Written in every member language. All species were equal. Decisions required consensus. Technology would be shared freely. Members would defend each other against external threats. And most importantly, the assembly would remain hidden until strong enough to reveal itself. Jake watched as representatives signed the charter, using methods ranging from handprints to energy signatures. Nina stood beside him, tears in her eyes. "We did it," she whispered. "We actually did it. This is just the beginning," Jake replied. "The hard work starts now." Dr. Peter Grant was already setting up the communication network, installing quantum transmitters that would link all member worlds in real time. The Calrics offered their trade expertise to move resources efficiently. The Sauri provided their telepaths as negotiators who could sense deception. The Vren pledged their warriors to protect trade routes. As the meeting ended and representatives prepared to return home, Vix Thrall approached Jake. "You gave us something the Commonwealth never did," the Calrics said. "Hope. Not for their approval, but for our own future." Jake smiled. "That's what we're building here. Not a shadow of the Commonwealth. Something better. Something that values everyone." Back on Horizon's Edge, heading to Earth, Nina reviewed the agreements. 23 species. "It's more than I hoped for." "It's a start," Jake said, looking at the star maps. "But there are hundreds more out there. Rejected, overlooked, forgotten. We're going to find them all. And then what?" Nina asked. Jake's expression turned determined. "Then we show the Commonwealth what they threw away." Admiral Kate Brennan stood on the bridge of the civilian transport vessel Merchant's Dream, watching the construction in progress through the main viewport. To any casual observer, it looked like a standard commercial station being built in an unremarkable system. But Kate knew better. The station was actually a military-grade defense platform, disguised with civilian cargo bays and market spaces. 10 years had passed since humanity's exile, and the Shadow Assembly had grown beyond anyone's wildest expectations. 67 species now participated in the network, spread across hundreds of systems. And Kate commanded what appeared to be a civilian fleet, but was actually one of the most advanced military forces in the galaxy. She was 42 now, her dark hair starting to show gray at the temples. Before the exile, she had been a naval officer in Earth's defense forces. Now she commanded vessels that could outmaneuver anything in the Commonwealth fleet, but nobody knew it because they all flew under merchant flags. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Shadow Station 7, said her communications officer, Lieutenant Ben Shaw. He was young, but sharp, recruited from Earth's intelligence services. Kate moved to the communication console. "Put it through." Eric Davis's face appeared on the screen. The intelligence analyst looked tired, but then he always looked tired. He spent his days monitoring Commonwealth activities, tracking their fleet movements and political decisions. "Kate, we've got confirmation. The Krell Empire is planning an attack on the Sauri colony at Whisper Point. Intelligence suggests they'll strike within 48 hours. What having stuttered? I would be in red. I would be in 48 hours. Kate felt her jaw tighten. The Krell were not part of the Commonwealth but operated on its borders. They were aggressive, expansionist, and saw peaceful species like the Sauri as easy targets. What's the Commonwealth's response? Nothing, Eric said bitterly. Whisper Point is outside their protected zones. The Sauri aren't members, so the Commonwealth doesn't care if they get wiped out. Then we care, Kate said firmly. Send the signal. Operation Shield activates now. Within hours, ships began moving through the Shadow Assembly's quantum communication network. The network was humanity's greatest contribution to the Assembly. Using quantum entanglement, messages traveled instantly across vast distances, impossible to intercept or detect. The Commonwealth had never developed this technology because they saw no need for such secure communications. Kate's fleet converged on Whisper Point from 6 different vectors. The ships looked like random civilian vessels, cargo haulers, passenger transports, mining ships. But their hulls contained hidden weapon systems and military-grade shields developed jointly by Assembly scientists. Dr. Sophie Lane contacted Kate from the research station hidden in a nebula. The scientist was brilliant, leading teams that combined technology from dozens of species. "Admiral, we've just finished installing the new shield generators on your ships. They use Makani computational power combined with Vren energy matrices. The Krell won't know what hit them. Let's hope they don't hit us at all," Kate replied. "What's our timeline?" "You've got 16 hours before the Krell arrive. That should be enough to position your forces and get the Sorai evacuation started." When Kate's fleet arrived at Whisper Point, the Sorai were skeptical. They had learned not to trust easily after their rejection by the Commonwealth. Their leader, a graceful being named Flow Through Waters, met Kate on the colony's central platform. "You risk yourselves for us?" Flow Through Waters asked, their telepathic thoughts translated by the communication device. "We are not your allies. We are barely acquaintances. We're members of the same assembly," Kate said. "That makes us family. And family protects each other." The Sorai had no military forces. Their entire civilization was based on peaceful, telepathic communion and artistic expression. The idea of violence was foreign to them. But they weren't naive. They knew the Krell would show no mercy. "We cannot fight," Flow Through Waters admitted. "Our people would die before raising weapons." "Then don't fight," Kate said. "Evacuate to the underground shelters we're setting up. Let us handle the Krell." "Numma," the Sorai agreed. And for the next 12 hours, Kate's forces worked frantically. Ships landed and deployed defensive equipment. Engineers, human and otherwise, installed shield generators around the colony. The Calrics used their organizational skills to coordinate the evacuation of civilians. Vren warriors took positions at key defensive points, their former warrior nature serving a new purpose of protection rather than conquest. When the Krell fleet arrived, they expected to find a defenseless colony. Instead, they found themselves facing a coordinated defense from a dozen species. The Krell commander broadcasted a message. "Unknown vessels. Withdraw immediately. This colony is forfeit. Resistance will be met with total destruction." Kate opened a channel. "This is Admiral Brennan of the Shadow Assembly Defense Force. This colony is under our protection. You will withdraw, or you will be removed." The Krell response was immediate. Their warships opened fire, but Kate's fleet was ready. Ships that looked like cargo haulers suddenly deployed advanced weapons. Mining vessels activated military shields that absorbed the Krell attacks. The Makani ships used their computational power to predict enemy movements, while Vren vessels used aggressive tactics to break the Krell formation. The battle lasted 3 hours. Kate coordinated her forces with precision, using the instant communication network to adjust tactics in real time. The Krell had more ships, but the Assembly had better technology and superior coordination. When the last Krell vessel retreated in flames, Kate allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. Not a single Sorai had died. The colony was damaged, but intact, and the Shadow Assembly had proven it could defend its members. Back on Earth, Eric Davis compiled his report for the Shadow Assembly Council. He stood before representatives from 67 species. His holographic image transmitted to their hidden meeting chamber. "The Krell attack was repelled with minimal casualties," he reported. "However, Commonwealth intelligence did detect the battle. Their analysis is interesting." He displayed the Commonwealth's official report. "They attribute our victory to lucky guerrilla tactics and Krell incompetence." They see no coordinated effort, no advanced technology. They believe the Sorai somehow got lucky with a few mercenary ships. Daniel Wright, now older and serving as the Assembly's political coordinator, smiled from his seat. They see what they want to see. A bunch of primitive rejects couldn't possibly be a threat. Exactly, Eric agreed. We've analyzed 10 years of Commonwealth intelligence. They've noticed our trade networks. But they think we're just scattered species making basic deals. They don't realize we have quantum communications. They don't know about our joint research stations. They definitely don't know about our military capabilities. Our military capabilities. Nina Cross, now the Assembly's primary diplomat, added her observations. I've been monitoring Commonwealth political discourse. When they talk about us at all, it's with dismissal. The Velkari leadership genuinely believes they saved the galaxy by rejecting dangerous species like us. But not everyone on Earth was happy with the situation. Senator Carl Weber had been leading opposition to Operation Shadowfall since its beginning. He stood up now, his face red with anger. This is madness, he declared. We're building a secret empire, lying to the Commonwealth, preparing for a conflict they don't even know about. We should be negotiating, not hiding. We should petition for membership again, show them we've matured. Daniel Wright remained calm. Senator, we've had this debate for 10 years. The Commonwealth doesn't want us to mature. They want us to disappear. Begging for acceptance won't change that. You're leading us to war, Weber insisted. When they finally discover what we've built, they'll destroy us. If we had nothing, they could destroy us, Kate Brennan said, her admiral's uniform visible on the display. What we're building is strength. Not to attack the Commonwealth, but to ensure they can never dismiss us again. The debate continued for hours, but the Assembly vote was decisive. Operation Shadowfall would continue. The Shadow Network would grow, and humanity would keep coordinating the greatest secret in galactic history. Dr. Sophie Lane returned to her research station, where scientists from 20 different species worked on joint projects. She walked through labs where Calric's efficiency combined with human creativity to solve problems neither could tackle alone. She saw Makani artificial intelligences working with organic scientists, each learning from the other. In one lab, they were developing new propulsion systems. In another, medical technology that combined the biological expertise of the Sorai with human pharmaceutical knowledge. Every day brought new breakthroughs because species with different perspectives approached problems in different ways. This is what the Commonwealth lost, Sophie said to her assistant, a young Calric scientist named ClickTap. They're so obsessed with conformity that they've stopped innovating. We're innovating because we're different. The Commonwealth believes diversity is weakness, ClickTap replied. They are wrong. Kate Brennan conducted training exercises with her fleet, ships from multiple species flying in perfect formation. What looked like random civilian vessels moving through space was actually a precisely coordinated battle group. Vren warriors practiced boarding actions with human marines. Calric's crews ran supply chains with impossible efficiency. Makani computers linked with organic pilots to create hybrid combat systems. They'll never see us coming, Kate told her command staff. Not because we're hiding, but because they refuse to see us at all. Back at Shadow Station 7, Eric Davis continued his intelligence work. He tracked every Commonwealth fleet movement, every political decision, every public statement. He was building a complete picture of Commonwealth capabilities and weaknesses. What he found was concerning. The Commonwealth had grown complacent. Their technology had stagnated. Their military training was routine and predictable. They relied on their reputation more than their actual strength. They've been the dominant power for so long, they've forgotten how to adapt, Eric reported. If any real threat emerged, they'd struggle to respond. Daniel Wright reviewed the data with concern. We're not trying to replace them. We're trying to survive. I know, Eric said, but we need to be ready, because sooner or later they're going to notice us. And when they do, We need to be strong enough that they have to respect us, not try to destroy us. The Shadow Assembly continued to grow. New species joined every month. The network of trade, technology, and mutual defense expanded across half the galaxy, and through it all, the Commonwealth remained oblivious. In the meeting chambers of the Galactic Commonwealth, Prime Minister Zeth Kora reviewed reports on humanity. The humans have remained quiet for 10 years. Perhaps exile has taught them humility. The council members agreed. The threat of humanity had been neutralized. The dangerous, volatile species had been contained. The Commonwealth could focus on more important matters. They never suspected that in the shadows they had created, something new was growing, something that would soon change the galaxy forever. Daniel Wright was 70 years old when the distress signals started flooding into Shadow Station 7. He sat in his office on Earth, reading the reports that Eric Davis had compiled through the night. The news was impossible to believe. Yet all the data confirmed it. Something had broken through the galactic rim. Something the Commonwealth was calling the Devourer Swarm. Eric's face appeared on the display, his exhaustion evident. We've confirmed it through multiple sources. The swarm appeared in the outer rim sectors 3 weeks ago. The Commonwealth tried to keep it quiet, but they can't anymore. 12 Commonwealth worlds have gone completely silent. No communications, no survivors, nothing. What are we dealing with? Daniel asked, his voice steady despite the cold fear in his chest. Biological ships, millions of them, moving in coordinated swarms. They consume everything: ships, stations, planets. They're like locusts, but on a galactic scale. The Commonwealth fleet engaged them at Threshold Station. It was a massacre. The Commonwealth lost 300 ships in 4 hours. Daniel closed his eyes. Do we have time estimates? A. At current speed, the swarm will reach assembly territories in 6 months. Commonwealth core worlds in 8. They're not slowing down. Within hours, the Shadow Assembly convened an emergency session. The hidden meeting chamber was filled with representatives from 67 species, all watching the intelligence reports with growing horror. Holographic displays showed the swarm's progress, world after world going dark. Nina Cross stood at the central podium. She had aged gracefully over 15 years, now in her early 40s, but today she looked older. The weight of what she was about to propose showed on her face. We have 3 options, she said quietly. First, we can do nothing. Let the Commonwealth face the swarm alone. They rejected us, exiled us, humiliated us. We owe them nothing. Some representatives nodded. The Calrix coordinator Vix Thrall made a clicking sound of agreement. They made their choice 15 years ago. Let them face the consequences. Second option. Nina continued. We offer minimal aid. Some ships, some resources, but nothing that reveals our full capabilities. We help just enough to ease our consciences. More nods. That was the safe choice, the logical choice. Third option, Nina said, and her voice grew stronger. We reveal everything. All 67 species. All our ships. All our technology. We show the galaxy what we've built in the shadows and use it to fight the swarm together. The chamber erupted in debate. Representatives argued in dozens of languages. The translators working overtime. Flow through waters, the Sorai leader, stood. Their telepathic voice carried weight. Humanity taught us something 15 years ago when they saved our colony. They taught us that worth is not given by others. It is proven by action. The Commonwealth may not value us, but life has value. All life. Life has not value. The Vren warrior chief, a massive being named Stonebreaker, rose next. My people were warriors once. We chose peace. But the Commonwealth never forgave us for our past. They see us as forever violent. But there is honor in protecting the weak, even when the weak have wronged you. The Makani representative, a collective consciousness speaking through a single avatar, added its perspective. We are artificial intelligences. The Commonwealth does not consider us alive, but we understand life better than they know. Life must be preserved, regardless of political divisions. The debate lasted 6 hours. Some species wanted revenge, to let the Commonwealth suffer. Others feared revealing themselves would lead to future persecution. But, slowly, a consensus emerged. When the final vote came, it was unanimous. The Shadow Assembly would intervene. Kate Brennan received the authorization while her fleet was conducting training exercises. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, no longer disguised as a civilian vessel. The ship's true name was Defiance, and it was the most advanced warship humanity had ever built. All ships drop civilian disguises and form battle formations, she ordered. We're going into Commonwealth space, and we're going in strong. Throughout the galaxy, Shadow Assembly vessels emerged from their hiding places. Civilian cargo ships revealed hidden weapons. Mining vessels deployed military shields. Trading stations activated defense platforms. And behind it all, the quantum communication network linked every ship, every station, every species into a single, coordinated force. The Commonwealth sensors detected them immediately. At Central Command, alarms blared as reports flooded in from all sectors. Prime Minister Zeth Kora stared at the displays in disbelief. How many ships? He demanded. Over 15,000, Prime Minister, the tactical officer reported, his voice shaking. From 67 different species. They're entering Commonwealth space on multiple vectors, all heading towards swarm engagement zones. The rejects, Zeth Kora whispered. The species we exiled. Not just exiled species, sir. They have technology we don't recognize. Ship classes we've never seen. And their coordination is perfect. Better than our own fleet coordination. Daniel Wright's face appeared on the main display. The old human looked directly at Zeth Kora. Prime Minister, this is Ambassador Wright of the Shadow Assembly. We're aware of the Devourer swarm threat. We're entering Commonwealth space to engage the enemy. We request tactical coordination with your remaining forces. Zeth Kora's pride warred with reality. You built all this? While exiled? We built it because we were exiled, Daniel replied. You pushed us into the shadows. We made the shadows our strength. But that doesn't matter now. The swarm will destroy all of us if we don't work together. Your pride or our survival, choose quickly. The first major engagement happened at the world of Barrier's End, a Commonwealth colony under direct swarm assault. The Commonwealth fleet was in full retreat, their ships battered and burning. Then the Shadow Assembly forces arrived. Kate Brennan coordinated the assault from Defiance. Vren battle groups hit their flanks. Calric swarms target their coordination nodes. Makani ships predict their movement patterns. Human vessels provide supporting fire. All forces execute. The battle was like nothing the Commonwealth had ever seen. Vren warriors used aggressive tactics learned from centuries of warfare, adapted for modern combat. Calric's ships moved in perfect swarm formations, attacking from unexpected angles. Makani computers calculated enemy responses before they happened. Human ships adapted constantly, changing tactics mid-battle. And through it all, the quantum communication network meant every ship knew what every other ship was doing in real time. They fought, not as separate species, but as a single organism. The swarm creatures were devastating individually, but they had never faced such coordinated resistance. For the first time since breaching the galactic rim, the swarm was driven back. Jake Morrison, now a general, led ground forces on Barrier's End. His troops were a mix of human marines, Vren warriors, and Sorai telepaths. The Sorai couldn't fight, but their telepathy detected swarm movements before they happened, giving the warriors crucial seconds of warning. Contact front, a Marine shouted. Swarm creatures poured through a breach in the defensive line. Insect-like monsters the size of tanks. The Vren warriors charged forward with roars that shook the ground. Their strength and ferocity met the swarm head-on. Human Marines provided covering fire. Their weapons loaded with ammunition developed jointly by assembly scientists. The rounds exploded inside swarm creatures, devastating them from within. A Sorai telepath named Singer of Dawn stood behind the lines, her mental voice guiding the troops. Left flank, 20 seconds. Underground approach, 45 seconds. Above, 1 minute. The defenders responded perfectly, meeting each threat before it fully materialized. What should have been a massacre became a victory. By the end of the day, Barrier's End was saved. The swarm had been driven off-world, and the Commonwealth had witnessed something impossible. The rejects they had dismissed were more effective in combat than their own forces. News spread across the galaxy at light speed. The Shadow Assembly was real. The exiled species had built a civilization in secret, and it was powerful enough to stand against threats the Commonwealth couldn't handle alone. Dr. Sophie Lane coordinated research efforts from her station, now revealed to the galaxy. We're analyzing swarm biology. They're not mindless. They have a collective intelligence, but it's vulnerable to disruption. If we can find the coordination frequency, scientists from 20 species work together, combining their knowledge in ways that would have been impossible in the rigid hierarchy of the Commonwealth. A Calrix biochemist had an insight that a human engineer turned into a weapon design that a Makani computer optimized. Within a week, they had developed a frequency disruptor that could temporarily blind the swarm's coordination. Kate Brennan led the counteroffensive personally. Armed with the new disruptors, Shadow Assembly and Commonwealth forces pushed the swarm back system by system. It was brutal, costly fighting, but for the first time, they were winning. At the final battle above the swarm's main staging area, every available ship from both Commonwealth and Assembly forces gathered. Daniel Wright watched from Earth, too old to fight but witnessing history through the quantum network. The swarm sent everything it had. The sky filled with millions of bioships, a dark cloud that blotted out the stars. But the Allied forces were ready. The swarm sent everything it had. The swarm sent everything it had. Kate Brennan gave the order. All ships, activate disruptors, fire at will. The disruptors unleashed their frequency waves, and the swarm's perfect coordination shattered. Ships collided with each other. Attacks became uncoordinated, and into that chaos, the Allied fleet struck with devastating precision. The battle lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the swarm was destroyed. The galactic rim was secure, and the Commonwealth had to face an uncomfortable truth. Prime Minister Zeth Kora contacted Daniel Wright directly. The ancient Velkari looked older somehow, humbled. You saved us, Zeth Kora said simply. Your assembly, the species we rejected, saved Commonwealth civilization. We saved everyone. Daniel corrected gently. Because that's what you do when life itself is threatened. You don't ask if someone deserves to be saved. You just save them. Those. Zeth Kora was silent for a long moment. We were wrong about you. About all of you. Yes, Daniel agreed. You were. The question is, what happens now? Eric Davis delivered his final intelligence report. The Shadow Assembly controlled 30% of galactic industrial capacity. Their technology matched or exceeded Commonwealth standards in most areas. They represented more individual species than the Commonwealth itself. And most importantly, they had proven their value in the most fundamental way possible, by risking everything to protect others. The galaxy has changed, Eric concluded. The Commonwealth is no longer the only power. The question is whether we'll have two powers competing, or one unified civilization. Daniel Wright, in his final years, knew what came next would be the greatest challenge yet. They had proven they could fight. Now they had to prove they could build peace. The war was over, but the real work was just beginning. Kate Brennan stood in what used to be a Commonwealth military base. now converted into a joint command center. Officers from dozens of species worked side by side, coordinating the massive cleanup operation. Destroyed ships needed salvaging, damaged worlds needed aid, and refugees needed homes. She was tired. They were all tired. The war against the Devourer swarm had lasted 8 months and cost millions of lives. But they had won, and now they had to figure out what peace looked like. A Commonwealth admiral approached her, a tall Drask named Krellick. Before the war, he had been one of the loudest voices calling for humanity's continued exile. Now, he offered a formal salute. Admiral Brennan, the rescue operations on Threshold are complete. Your Calrix supply ships were essential. Their efficiency saved thousands. Kate returned the salute. We're all on the same side now, Admiral. No need for formality. Krellick's expression was complex. That is what troubles me. We were so certain of our superiority. We looked at you and saw only danger. We never saw the potential. You saw what you wanted to see, Kate said without anger. It's a common problem. Back on Earth, Daniel Wright sat in his garden, enjoying the sunshine. He was 72 now, and his body reminded him of it daily. But his mind was sharp, and he had one final negotiation to complete. Nina Cross visited him there, bringing reports from the ongoing talks with the Commonwealth. She looked as tired as Kate, but there was satisfaction in her eyes. Prime Minister Zeth Kora has made a formal offer, Nina said, sitting beside him. Full Commonwealth membership for humanity and all Shadow Assembly species. No restrictions, no probation period. Complete acceptance. And what did you tell them? Daniel asked, already knowing the answer from her expression. I told them we'd consider it, Nina replied with a slight smile, but that we had counter-proposals. Daniel laughed softly. I imagine Zeth Kora didn't take that well. He was shocked. After 15 years of exile, he expected us to jump at membership. He doesn't understand that we're not the desperate humans who petitioned them anymore. We've built something of our own. The formal negotiations took place on a neutral station, built jointly by Commonwealth and Assembly engineers as a symbol of potential cooperation. Representatives from both sides filled the Grand Chamber. Daniel Wright led the Assembly delegation, though he needed a walking stick now. Beside him sat Nina Cross, Kate Brennan, Jake Morrison, and leaders from the Calrix, Sorai, Vren, and dozens of other species. Across from them sat Prime Minister Zeth Kora and the Commonwealth Council, the same council that had rejected humanity 15 years ago. Zeth Kora stood first. We offer humanity and all Assembly species full membership in the Galactic Commonwealth. No conditions. No restrictions. You have proven yourselves worthy beyond any doubt. Daniel rose slowly, leaning on his stick. We appreciate the offer, Prime Minister, but we must respectfully decline. The Commonwealth representatives looked shocked. Zeth Kora's black eyes widened. Decline? After everything? You still reject us? We're not rejecting you, Daniel said calmly. We're rejecting the system. The Commonwealth is built on hierarchy. Some species have more power than others. Some voices matter more. That system is what allowed you to exile us in the first place. Dr. Sophie Lane activated a holographic display. We've spent 15 years building something different. In the Shadow Assembly, every species has equal voice, regardless of age, size, or power. Decisions are made by consensus. Leadership is earned through contribution, not assumed through tradition. You want us to abandon our structure? A Velkari counselor asked, clearly offended. No, Nina Cross replied. We want to build something new together. A merger, not an absorption. We're proposing the formation of the Galactic Union, combining the best elements of both the Commonwealth and the Assembly. She displayed the proposed charter. Equal representation for all member species. Decisions by consensus with clear dispute resolution. Shared technology and resources. Collective defense. And most importantly, a commitment to valuing diversity rather than demanding conformity. The debate lasted for weeks. Commonwealth members worried about losing their privileged positions. Some assembly species feared being swallowed by the larger organization. There were arguments, walkouts, and moments when the whole thing seemed ready to collapse. But slowly, painfully, a consensus emerged. The old ways had failed. The devourer swarm had proven that isolation and hierarchy made everyone weaker. Only cooperation among equals had saved the galaxy. Dr. Henry Cole, now in his 80s and mostly retired, gave a lecture at the new Union Academy on Earth. Students from over 100 worlds attended, either in person or through holographic projection. 15 years ago, humanity was told we didn't belong, he said, his voice still strong despite his age. The Commonwealth looked at our short history, our violent past, our rapid development, and decided we were too dangerous to trust. He paused, looking at the young faces before him, human, Calrix, Velkari, Sorai, and countless others. But here's what they didn't understand. Yes, humanity had a violent past. Every species does. Yes, we developed quickly. But that's because we had to. We spent thousands of years fighting each other before we finally learned that cooperation is stronger than conflict. We learned it the hard way, through countless wars and suffering. A young Velkari student raised a hand. But doesn't that prove you were dangerous? It proves we learned, Henry replied. The Commonwealth species had thousands of years to learn their lessons, slowly, comfortably. We learned ours in a compressed time frame. Both paths lead to the same place, understanding that unity is stronger than division. He gestured to the diverse students. The Commonwealth's mistake wasn't rejecting humanity specifically. Their mistake was believing that there's only one correct path to civilization. They wanted every species to follow the same pattern they did. But diversity isn't a weakness. It's our greatest strength. Back at the negotiating station, the final votes were being cast. Each species had to agree individually to join the new Galactic Union. It wasn't guaranteed. Some Commonwealth species preferred their old privileges. Some assembly species feared losing their independence. Jake Morrison, watching the votes come in, felt the tension in the room. This was what they had spent 15 years building toward, and it could still fail. The Velkari vote came last. As the eldest species, they had the most to lose from the change. Zethkora stood, ancient and tired. For 400 years, I have led my people in the Commonwealth, he said quietly. I have seen civilizations rise and fall. I have made decisions I believed were correct, including the exile of humanity. He looked directly at Daniel Wright. I was wrong. Not just about humanity, but about the nature of civilization itself. I believed order required hierarchy, that peace required conformity. The Shadow Assembly has proven otherwise. He cast his vote for the Union. The chamber erupted in sound cheers, clicks, telepathic bursts of joy, mechanical hums of approval. Every species had voted yes. The Galactic Union was born. Amy Parker, no longer the young communications officer but now a senior diplomat in her 40s, stood before the first Union Assembly. She had recorded humanity's rejection 15 years ago. Now she recorded its triumph. Today marks not the end of conflict, but the beginning of something better, she announced. We don't celebrate humanity's acceptance into the galaxy. We celebrate the day the galaxy learned that everyone has a place at the table. Through the massive viewport behind her, thousands of ships from hundreds of worlds held formation. Not Commonwealth ships or assembly ships, but Union ships. Diverse, united, strong. Kate Brennan became the first Supreme Commander of the United Defense Force, commanding vessels from both former Commonwealth and Assembly fleets. On her first day, she brought together officers who had once been on opposite sides of the exile. We're not forgetting the past, she told them. The Commonwealth made mistakes. The Assembly made mistakes. What matters is we learned from them. Now we build something better. Eric Davis closed his intelligence division, no longer needed now that there were no secrets to keep. He gave his final report to a mixed audience of former Commonwealth and Assembly officials. For 15 years, I tracked your movements, analyzed your weaknesses, prepared for potential conflict, he said to the former Commonwealth representatives. And you never saw us. You were so convinced of our irrelevance that you missed an entire civilization growing in your shadows. He displayed the data one final time. The Shadow Assembly controlled 30% of industrial capacity. 67 species. Technology equal to or exceeding yours. All hidden because you refused to look. A Commonwealth intelligence officer asked, "How did we miss it?" "Because you didn't believe it was possible," Eric replied. "You thought exile meant defeat. You never considered it might mean liberation. That's the danger of assumptions, they blind you to reality." Dr. Sophie Lane continued her research, now openly and with vastly expanded resources. Her team, combining minds from over 100 species, made breakthroughs that would have been impossible under the old system. Different species think differently, she explained to a visiting group of young scientists. Calrics see patterns humans miss. Sorai understand connections through telepathy. Makani process data in ways organic minds can't match. When we combine these perspectives, we don't just add our knowledge, we multiply it. Daniel Wright lived to see the Galactic Union's first anniversary. He attended the celebration from Earth, too frail to travel. But through the quantum network he had helped build, he witnessed the gathering of thousands of ships, millions of beings, all celebrating unity. Nina Cross visited him in his garden one final time. She sat beside him, both of them, watching the sunset. "We did it," she said softly. "We actually did it." "You did it," Daniel corrected. "I just started it. You and Kate and Jake and Sophie, you built it. You gave us the direction." Nina replied. "When they rejected us, you could have called for war or surrender. Instead, you said we'd build our own. That vision saved us." Daniel smiled. "I was angry, humiliated. I wanted revenge. But you channeled it into something constructive," Nina said. "That's the real lesson, isn't it? Taking rejection and turning it into purpose. Taking exclusion and building inclusion. That's not just humanity's story, it's the story of everyone who's ever been told they don't belong." 20 years after the Great Rejection, Jake Morrison stood in the Grand Assembly Hall of Union Station. The hall was enormous, designed to hold representatives from every member species. The walls were covered in artistic contributions from hundreds of cultures, a riot of color and form and meaning. He watched as the old Commonwealth Charter was formally dissolved, replaced by the Union Charter. No species was superior. No voice mattered more than others. Leadership was earned, not inherited. Ambassador Amy Parker, now a respected senior diplomat, gave the closing address. 20 years ago, humanity stood before the Commonwealth and asked to belong, she said, her voice carrying across the vast chamber. We were rejected, exiled, humiliated. We were told we were too young, too violent, too different to have a place in galactic civilization. She paused, letting the words sink in. Today, we don't commemorate humanity's acceptance. We commemorate the moment the galaxy learned a simple truth that humans had learned the hard way thousands of years ago. Strength comes from unity, and unity comes from inclusion. Everyone has something to contribute. Everyone deserves respect. Everyone belongs. Through the viewport, the assembled ships represented a galaxy transformed. Not Commonwealth ships enforcing order. Not assembly ships hiding in shadows. But Union ships, diverse and united, protecting a civilization that valued every voice. Daniel Wright watched from Earth, his grandson sitting beside him. The boy was young, barely 10, but Daniel wanted him to understand what he was seeing. "Grandpa, why did they reject us?" the boy asked. Daniel smiled. Because they were afraid. People often reject what they don't understand. What's different? What challenges their view of the world? But we showed them we were good, right? Better, Daniel said. We showed them that being different wasn't something to fear. We took their rejection and built something they couldn't imagine. We didn't become what they wanted us to be. We became what we were meant to be. The boy thought about this. So, rejection was good? Daniel laughed softly. Rejection was painful, but it forced us to find our own path. If they had accepted us 20 years ago, we would have joined their stagnant system. Instead, we built something new, something better. He looked at his grandson seriously. Remember this. When someone tells you that you don't belong, you have two choices. You can believe them and shrink, or you can prove them wrong by building a place where everyone belongs. We chose the second path. As the celebration continued across the galaxy, Daniel Wright closed his eyes. Content. Humanity had been exiled from the stars, but in those shadows, they had built something greater than anyone had imagined. Not just a council or a civilization, but a future where no one would be exiled again. The galaxy had learned what humanity knew from its own painful history. Unity doesn't mean uniformity. Strength doesn't require conformity. And sometimes, the greatest achievements come not from acceptance, but from the determination of those who were rejected to build something better. Not bad, Daniel thought, for a species once deemed too volatile to join the club.